Um, one of the things that I would like to talk to you about, which many of you might know, but many of you might not know, is that the CFA exam, since it is now a computer-based exam, as opposed to a paper-based exam like it was, is really has changed a lot. And people who are taking the exams and looking at either old exams or anything that the CFA Institute published in the past are saying, wow, this is nothing like the exams I looked at. It's nothing like the CFA Institute's mock exams or sample exams or practice questions. And that's really very true. And that is because along with the pandemic and along with moving from a paper-based exam to a computer-based exam, there's been some changes in the way the questions are asked. And I wanted to talk about that for a few moments with you so that you're prepared whether you're taking the level 1, the level 2, or the level 3 exam. If you're taking the level 1 exam, the exam is now 180 multiple choice questions. They're your traditional multiple choice questions. You have 90 questions in the first session and 90 questions in the second session. And the first session, as many of you may know, include questions from ethics and GIPS. Okay, and then there's a medley of questions with regard to quantitative methods, economics, and financial statement analysis. So those will be the first 90 questions in the first session. And in the second session, you'll start out with corporate issuers questions, also known as corporate finance to some other people. And then it'll be followed by a medley, a combination of portfolio management, equity, fixed income, derivatives, and alternative investment questions. Okay, so you will not have ethics questions, for example, in the first session and the second session. Now, that really shouldn't change the way you study for the exam or how you would prepare for the exam. But what you need to realize is when the CFA Institute suddenly goes down or reduces the number of questions from 240 to 180 questions, and they're going now from a 6-hour exam to what is now a 4.5, shy of a 4.5-hour exam, what does that really mean to you? It doesn't mean that the questions are harder, the exam is harder, or that the exam is easier. Nothing like that at all. I'm sure that if you looked at the exam from 20 years ago, and if you looked at the exam today, you'd see that it's probably of the same caliber, okay? What is really changing here when they're reducing the questions and not necessarily the difficulty of the exam is the fact that the CFA Institute probably believes that they could get as much out of you in terms of your knowledge with 180 questions rather than 240 questions. So you say, well, how do they do that? The way they do that would be to create questions that are less linear and more integrated questions. What do I mean by a linear question? A linear question would be something that is just directly out of the book. That if you read it, you can just answer it because it's like a fill in the blank. Whereas an integrated question would integrate multiple facets of the CFA Level 1 exam. It would include maybe a question that integrates derivatives like futures and forward contracts, along with something in economics like currency exchange rates. Or it might integrate something from fixed income like mortgage pass-through securities, along with quantitative methods, something from like simple linear regression. So this way they can make questions, fewer questions, but more integrated and more thought-provoking questions, and really grasp whether you, as the candidate, just understand stuff that you've read or whether you understand how it all fits together. And that's the way you should actually be focusing when you're working with me or myself in my prep materials in terms of integrating the questions so that you can answer the questions the way the CFA is looking for it to be done. If you're a level 2 candidate, the exam format is still an item set exam. However, instead of 120 questions like you used to have, you now have 88 questions. You have 44 item set questions in the first session and 44 item set questions in the afternoon session. And according to the CFA Institute, there are approximately 11 item sets in the first session and 11 item sets in the second session. Is that something that you have to memorize? No. Does it mean that every item set is going to have 5 or 4 questions? No. It really doesn't matter. That's not where your focus should be. What you should be understanding, again, is much like a level 1 candidate, they've reduced the number of questions, so they're looking again for more integration. Okay, so when you used to have a 6-hour exam and now you have a shy of 4.5-hour exam and you have 88 questions instead of 120, and the level of difficulty is going to be more or less the same, then you should be prepared to have less linear questions, less just purely mathematical questions, and more questions that are going to encompass a solid understanding of concepts along multiple different areas. So again, they could integrate things like economics with financial statement analysis, or they could integrate quant with fixed income in order to create the questions within the item set. And again, in the level 2 exam, the only big difference is you have more time for each question. You have 3 minutes per question, but as you'll learn if you work with me and you work with my resources, if you're going to spend 3 minutes on every question, you probably aren't going to finish the exam. And that's why I try to get you to create a buffer zone or time so that you can always go back and look at your questions. But you're going to have to read, understand, sometimes calculate, and integrate all in one shot to answer every item set question. If you're a level 3 candidate, the level 3 exam has become more of a problem for candidates over the years to actually pass, even though they passed level 1 and sometimes even level 2 on their first try. Well, does that mean that the level 3 exam is much more difficult? No, it's the first time that candidates have actually been required to start writing or typing, in this case, their answers instead of just choosing A, B, or C, like in a vignette at level 2 or a multiple choice question at level 1. The level 3 exam is structured in the first session with approximately 11 essays, according to the CFA Institute. There will be 11 essays, and they will cover all the different types of topics that are permissible in the CFA level 3 curriculum. So you should anticipate a fixed income essay or 2, an equity essay, an alternative investments essay, maybe even a behavioral finance essay, supposedly an IPS, an investment policy statement for an individual or an institution or both. You can have also essays on derivatives. So you will have a medley of essays, and each essay is not really a traditional essay the way you think about it from your English class in 9th grade. The essays are really what we call more constructive responses. They don't require an introduction, a conclusion, and supporting paragraphs like you would in a traditional essay, but rather you have to get really right to the point, address the essay, address all aspects, all command words used in the essay question in order to get full points. And that is what I spend a lot of time with my level 3 candidates doing, because I really need you to understand the command words and what the graders are actually looking for when they ask you to justify something or select something or briefly explain or discuss something. What is the level of depth you have to have in your essay answers? And again, just reciting the books isn't going to give you all of the points in most cases. The second session of the level 3 exam is going to be your traditional item sets like you had at level 2, with about 10 or 11 item sets made up of 4, 5, or 6 questions. Again, you're not studying for the number of item sets, but rather understand that you will have 44 item set questions in the second session of your level 3 exam, and they will be of the same caliber or the same type of format as you did at level 2. So that's how the level 3 exam is structured. But remember, really the key to passing the level 3 is cracking those essays. And that is what I try to focus on, and I think you should focus on when you're doing any kind of course with me or work with me or doing my essay mocks, is how to give the graders what they want. That's the key to passing level 3 and getting your charter. So that's a quick glimpse of what is changing or has changed in the CFA program. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to visit my website at chalkandboard.org. And you're also always permitted to give me a call or send me a text message, and I'm happy to get on with you.